third-person point of view. Unlike first-person point of view, in third-person point of view, the story the narrator tells is not that of his or her own. The narrator is instead relaying the experiences and feelings of someone else. It might be easier to remember if you think of it this way. In first-person point of view, the narrator is telling a story about him or herself. In second person, the narrator is usually giving directions. And in third person, someone is telling a story about someone else. However, telling a story about someone else can be a bit difficult, so we use some tools to make the job easier. Stories in third-person point of view make use of the pronouns he, she, it, him, her, hers, himself, herself, itself, they, them, theirs, and themselves. And in third-person point of view, we have 3 more specific perspectives we can use to help make the story more interesting. We call these tools the omniscient third person, the limited third person, and the objective third person. And here is how they work. In the omniscient third person, the narrator of the story knows everything there is to know about all of the characters in the story, including all of their experiences and feelings. Omniscient third-person point of view is often referred to as the all-knowing perspective, since the narrator can actually take us inside the minds of the characters in the story, so we can hear their thoughts. And, if you think about it, knowing what a character is thinking allows the reader to become closer to the character and possibly care about them more. Let's take a look at a piece of especially famous literature you will probably recognize and see if we can understand a little more about omniscient point of view. Stars are beautiful, but they may not take an active part in anything. They must just look on forever. It is a punishment put on them for something they did so long ago that no star now knows what it was. So the older ones have become glassy-eyed and seldom speak. Winking is the star language, but the little ones still wonder. They are not really friendly to Peter, who had a mischievous way of stealing up behind them and trying to blow them out. But they are so fond of fun that they were on his side tonight and anxious to get the grown-ups out of the way. So as soon as the door of 27 closed on Mr. and Mrs. Darwin, there was a commotion in the firmament, and the smallest of all the stars in the Milky Way screamed out, "Now, Peter!" In this whimsical passage from James Barrie's novel, Peter Pan, we can really see the omniscient point of view at work. The narrator in this story is so all-knowing that not only are we being told a fantastical tale of how stars came to be, we even get to see what the stars in the sky are thinking about and doing. The passage includes the pronoun they, and since the narrator is telling the story about someone other than themselves, this passage qualifies as third person. That's why when we talk about writing of this kind, we call it third-person omniscient point of view. In third-person limited omniscient point of view, we have another all-knowing narrator, but this time, there's a catch. In limited omniscience, the narrator can know all the thoughts, experiences, and emotions of only one character in the story. The Call of the Wild by Jack London is a story that takes place mainly in the Yukon Territory, the land between Alaska and Canada, and it's about a dog, a huge St. Bernard Scotch Shepherd mix named Buck, who is kidnapped from his home in California and taken to Alaska, where he then tries to return to the wild and join a wolf pack. The story is told through the thoughts and experiences of Buck. Yet, Buck cannot be telling the story because, well, he's a dog. The story instead is told by a narrator. Let's take a look. At the first step upon the cold surface, Buck's feet sank into a white, mushy something very like mud. He sprang back with a snort. More of this white stuff was falling through the air. He shook himself, but more of it fell upon him. He sniffed it curiously, then licked some up on his tongue. It bit like fire, and the next instant was gone. This puzzled him. He tried it again, with the same result. The onlookers laughed uproariously, and he felt ashamed. He knew not why, for it was his first snow. Since the narrator was not present during the events of the story and tells us the story through Buck's experiences and feelings, we know the narrator is third person because the narrator is not there. And we know the narrator in this passage is omniscient because he knows the thoughts and feelings of one of the characters, namely Buck. Notice how we are told when the snow hits Buck's tongue, it bit like fire, and later that Buck felt ashamed. This is how we know the narrator can access Buck's thoughts, feelings, and emotions. However, since the narrator doesn't access the thoughts and emotions of the onlookers, we know the omniscient power of the narrator is limited to just one character in the story. For those reasons, we know the Call of the Wild is written in third person, limited omniscience. In third person, objective point of view, the narrator cannot in any way see or hear the thoughts of the characters in the story. The narrator can only tell us what is seen or heard. The most common type of third-person objective point of view we see in our daily lives comes from the news. Journalism relies heavily on third-person objective point of view, as the job of most journalists is to relay the facts of a situation. However, even though a story is written in third-person objective point of view, if a writer uses it with enough skill, the reader can almost feel like they know the thoughts and feelings of a character. Let's see how third-person objective point of view is used in this passage from The Marvelous Exploits of Paul Bunyan by W.B. Laud. Babe, the big blue ox, constituted Paul Bunyan's assets and liabilities. History disagrees as to when, where, and how Paul first acquired this bovine locomotive, but his subsequent record is reliably established. Babe could pull anything that had two ends to it. Babe was 7 axe handles wide between the eyes, according to some authorities. Others, equally dependable, say 42 axe handles and a plug of tobacco. Like other historical contradictions, this comes from using different standards. 7 of Paul's axe handles were equal to a little more than 42 of the ordinary kind. In this passage, we are told a story by a narrator who is not a character in the story, so it qualifies as third person, and we see the use of the pronoun his to back that up. Further, we have no direct peek into the feelings and thoughts of any character in the story, and are instead only given the facts, no matter how exaggerated they may be. This qualifies the story as being told from an objective point of view. So, we say this story was written from the third-person objective point of view. However, with the objective point of view, and a bit of exaggeration to add flavor to this tall tale, we get a sense that the narrator wanted us to feel just how incredible the characters of Paul Bunyan and his big blue ox babe were. Let's review. Question number 1. In the omniscient point of view, the narrator, A, has limited knowledge of the character's thoughts and emotions. B, has objective knowledge of the character's actions. Or C, is all-knowing and has complete access to the thoughts and emotions of a character. The answer is C. In omniscient point of view, the narrator is all-knowing and has complete access to the thoughts, experiences, and emotions of all the characters in a story. Question number 2. A narrator who knows none of the thoughts and emotions of any character in the story, and instead relays information that is seen or heard, is A, omniscient, B, limited, or C, objective? The answer is C. A narrator that knows none of the thoughts and feelings of any character in a story, and instead relays information that can be seen or heard, is using the objective point of view. Question number 3. If a narrator is not in the story and knows everything there is to know about just one character, including that one character's thoughts and emotions, the narrator is using the A, third-person limited point of view, B, third-person omniscient point of view, or C, third-person objective point of view. The answer is A. A narrator that is not in the story but knows all the thoughts, experiences, and feelings of just one character in the story has a third-person limited point of view. Thinking question. If you were going to write a story about three friends going to lunch, which point of view would you use and why?